Right, hello and welcome back to a brand new video. Now, I realise I haven't done a video in a while, and I've stopped doing horror movie reviews as much as I did a while ago. I want to start doing them again. So the plan for the next couple of weeks are going to be reviewing a franchise. I'm going to finish the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I need to do Wes Craven's New Nightmare and the original, the remake, sorry, and then I'm going to do the Friday the 13th complete 12 movies, I think it is now. And I also want to talk today about my favourite horror film, which is Halloween, the original 1978 classic, the one that kind of created this slasher genre. I know it wasn't the first slasher film, Peeping Tom it was called, and Psycho I guess you could count as a slasher film, but Halloween was the one that made it successful, made other films like Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. So this is my favourite horror film because it has probably the greatest protagonist in a horror film, Jamie Lee Curtis, and it also has the greatest villain. There's always Jason and Freddy Krueger, but my favourite is Michael Myers. I think that he's the creepiest and the most chilling of them all. The problems I have with the other two is that Freddy Krueger I think was too fun to be scary, and then Jason, I have seen quite a lot of the Friday the 13th films, and I don't think he looks as great as he does in two of them. The remake was great for how he looked, but also Friday the 13th Part 7, I know it's a random film in the franchise, but the way Jason looked in that film was incredible. I think that if they kept that all the way through, it would have made the film scarier and even better. Although Part 7 isn't very good, the way that Jason looked in that film was ridiculously amazing, and it's the same with Michael Myers. Apart from it's the other way around. The later ones, he just didn't look creepy at all, but in the very first film, that mask was really kind of chilling, and the way that they used the shadows in the film. There's one scene where the boy looks out the window and he sees against the house just the shadow of Michael Myers, and he keeps calling it the Boogeyman. I thought that was so great, the way that they used the camera work in this film by John Carpenter, and the direction and the music, all of it came together to make the greatest horror movie of all time. So the creepiest probably part of this film, and I know a lot of people praise as being amazing, is the intro shot. It's a very long take. There are edits in it, and if you look closely you can see where they are, but it looks like a one shot of Michael's POV when he was like a boy, when he kills his sister, and the way that they used kind of this child, because they use that quite a lot in horror films, and I think it kind of is getting a bit boring now, but making the child kind of the villain in the film makes it, I think, more for parents to be scared of children, and this one in particular, this was the one that kind of started it all off. He was incredibly creepy in the beginning of the film, and Michael Myers, as he grows older, and just everything about him in the film is creepy. The way he moves, the way he silently watches people. There's a scene where they're walking like down this path and you can see him behind a hedge, like half of him. That was one of the creepiest shots as well, when she looks out the window and he's with like the washing line hiding behind it. When I first watched this film, I was expecting to look outside and just see him there. It was so well done in this film, and the music, and the way they didn't use the big loud noises for the jump scares as well. There's a lot of films do that with false jump scares. I watched a film recently, I can't remember what it was, I think it was Insidious, where they play really loud noises at really minor things. Oh, it was actually a Friday the 13th film, I think it was part 5, like a cat jumps out of a window, and it's a loud noise, and it doesn't scare you, it doesn't make you scared of the cat, it doesn't do anything for the film. And he did it again in Insidious. It's building all this tension, and as soon as the jump scare comes on, it just ruins everything. Halloween, it got rid of that. There's a scene where Donald Pleasence is like watching a house and someone taps on his shoulder, and in modern films now you'd expect it to make a loud noise, but instead it was just silent, and it just kept the tension, and it did really well with that. And I like the fact they didn't add the big noises to the jump scares. I thought it was really well done like that. And there wasn't many jump scares, it was more in the horror of not knowing where Michael Myers was at that time. And one scene in particular, which is probably my favourite horror scene of all time, and one of my favourite scenes of all time, where Jamie Lee Curtis is hiding in the wardrobe, and Michael Myers is trying to break through, and he's breaking like the panels, and he's trying to reach her, and he just can't. That scene was so intense and suspenseful, it was ridiculous. I love that scene. If you haven't seen any part of the film, and you don't know if you should watch it, look up that scene on YouTube. It is probably the greatest horror scene of all time, just because of how intense and suspenseful it was. It was great, that scene. And Jamie Lee Curtis did great in this film. I know that her performance wasn't as good as her other films, but I still think that she did really well in comparison to the other, maybe not as well actors. Some of her friends wasn't very good. The one who talks about the books at the start, she couldn't act, and a lot of people hated her. I didn't think it was too bad. I just think it wasn't very, well, good. But Donald Pleasence is probably the standout performance in this film. He did great in the acting. When he's giving a speech about Michael Myers and Eve, I thought that was great. And this film was the landmark. It set all the tropes and cliches that would come. And I think that I can do pretty well at thinking of how it would have acted out in them days. So like Friday the 13th Part 3, the 3D in that film is ridiculous. Like, why are they using it? But I do understand that some of the scenes would have been creepier back then than it is today. And again, with Halloween, I don't even have to think of that because I can just see how great it is now. Never mind back then, it is still as creepy and as eerie and as enjoyable as it is then. I wouldn't say this film is scary, but I would say it's the most enjoyable and most rewatchable horror film of all time. It doesn't use lots of violence, it's always the imagination of it. The third act was great, the ending scene was great, the acting from some of the people was great, the musical score was great, the direction was great. Everything about this film is amazing. There's some great theories about it as well, that the Janet Leigh's boyfriend from Psycho is Dr. Loomis because he has the same last name, and it would make sense because John Carpenter was a fan of Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock's films. I think that's a great kind of theory to throw into the mix, and this film is just amazing. If you haven't seen any horror films, this is a good one to start off with because it isn't too over the top or gratuitous. It's a classic. It's my favourite horror film of all time. One of the best films of all time. If you haven't seen it, come watch it and let me know what you think. Comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.